Welcome to the Dave Palma Show, the podcast that revives, restores, and awakens your innermost capabilities.
You have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail? I love what I do. When you love what you do, you want to be the best at it.
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
Find your path to success through the journey of those who have succeeded. And now, your host, Dave Palma.
Hi, welcome back to the Dave Palma Show. And with me in this episode, I have the President and CEO of the International Fund for Animal Welfare, International Fund for Animal Welfare, or IFAW, since 2012. And since joining the organization in 1997 as its executive vice president, he has worked closely with experts and decision makers from around the world, leading a groundbreaking period of geographic expansion and strategic consolidation. Azzedine Downes, welcome to the Dave Palma Show.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Pleased to have you on here. And as I was mentioning, my audience will obviously know that I do like to have causes on my show, as well as speaking about, some self-improvement and bettering yourself in life, and sometimes some political causes. But and I have had a few animal charities, and of course yours is quite a big one, really, isn't it? So
yeah, we're working around the world in 40 different countries. We celebrated in 2019 our 50th anniversary. So
oh wow.
Continually changing and evolving as the world around us changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, as a firefighter, it's not just fires. You can imagine firefighters we go to car crashes, building collapsing, war-torn countries, earthquakes, and we do animal rescue as well. And I've been part of that as well. So glad to say you probably know about that already. But that is part of it. But that's part of our humanitarian services.
Sure.
So it's quite a pleasure to have an organizer like yours come on my show and speak today. So can you tell me more about your involvement? How did you get started with all this before getting involved in this organization?
Yeah, so I've always worked in the nonprofit sector my entire career. I had worked with the Peace Corps in a number of countries, lived in Morocco and Yemen, Bulgaria, Jerusalem.
Oh, so
and,
very challenging countries there you mentioned.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Peace Corps is about that, isn't it?
Well, it is. And, I think I probably learned a lot more than I imparted knowledge, but that's what shapes us over time. And so I had worked with people who then joined IFAW as the staff and the CEO, and the organization was a collection, if you will, of incredible people doing incredible work around the world. But from an institutional point of view, it wasn't really coming together in a cohesive way. And so the CEO at the time asked me to come and help really recreate a global organization. So that's how I got involved.
Oh, right. So it's quite interesting because you've gone from, a very serious. I mean, I've heard of Peace Corps. I think it's quite a, it's like hearing about Red Cross almost, isn't it, really? And the white helmets as well. So it's quite a serious humanitarian one with what, can be quite dangerous as well, I suppose. But then it's animals.
But see, so in 2019 we launched the new brand, if you will, of IFAW, and it's focused on animals and people thriving together in the place that we call home, which is the planet.
Yes.
And I think that conservation has changed so much that the park, the animals are inside it and people are outside it, and there's no interaction between them. But that, I don't think it was ever true. But spaces that are protected are not static because of climate change. So animals are peeping, they're moving, and people are moving as well. And so there's increased interaction between them. And so what we've really focused on, and I think it has a lot to do with sort of how I approach my work in international development prior to IFAW, is that if you don't have the support of people that live with wildlife, we're not going to succeed. And so that's been a fundamental change within the organization.
Absolutely, and you kind of mentioned something that is really it's the planet that we call home, Earth, includes everything, not just humans. And what
That's
you
right.
mentioned about climate change is specifically that it doesn't
Mm.
matter which organisation. We're all in this together, if you like, when it comes to climate change
Well,
and
it's
animals
true,
included.
but it's extraordinary when you go to international fora. And I was just in Nairobi for the Africa Climate Summit,
Mm,
and the point that I made was that bio has to be part of the solution, and that people and wildlife is simply not a victim of climate change. They're part of the solution. And why is nature and biodiversity and wildlife not part of the discussions in climate discussions? And not to say that reduction of fossil fuel use is not critical and emissions is not critical, but this notion that uh, people are simply going to adapt and not offer solutions, and that nature will simply have to suffer the consequences, I think is just wrong. And the reason why, here in Europe, we were talking this morning about why we focus on wildlife crime and disrupting the criminal networks that trade in live animals or
mm.
animal parts. And it's wrong, and of course it's illegal, but the real reason is because we want wild animals in the wild, because when you save an elephant, you're saving yourself.
Yeah, yeah. What exactly do you mean by that? I mean, or what could you tell my listeners what they mean by that? What you mean by
Well, what it means is that there's a reason why wild animals exist, and there's a reason that they're critical to a healthy environment. So elephants are the architects of the
that?
landscapes. They're not just there. They're massaging the soil. They're digging things. They're making it possible for insects to survive. Uh,
Mm,
there's a lot of news about bees and the loss of bees and pollination.
mm,
If we
okay.
don't have all of the elements of biodiversity, we're not going to have a food supply.
Yes, right. Yeah,
You know,
yeah. That's
there are lots of insects, for example, that clean the soil, that remove
right.
harmful chemicals.
Okay.
Those insects don't exist if the trees are not there, if the savannas are not there,
Mm,
if the soil itself is not healthy. And
yeah,
so, with the wildlife that makes all of that possible,
yeah,
ultimately um, it affects us. And the way that it affects us as people is that we have wildfires that are so intense. We have floods that are destroying the places we live in. And so this notion that it's somehow aside from us and that climate change is just the temperature and we're going to have to live with it somehow is just wrong. It's just
yeah,
wrong.
yeah. No, it's still not taken seriously by quite many of the top global leaders and
Yeah.
politicians around the world, really, as it should be
But
a the
it's
urgency.
interesting you say that because it's just not your opinion or my opinion.
Mm,
I hear politicians say at these conventions that we're going to save the planet if it makes good economic sense. We're going to save the wildlife if it's worth it economically, as if it's an option to save ourselves or save the planet. I mean, you really have to think, well, how could they not see it?
mm,
But so much is driven by economic growth that wildlife is seen as almost a decoration by some. They
mhm.
don't see the intrinsic value that has in fact created the planet on which we live.
Yeah. No, no, absolutely. So, so we heard a little bit about how you got involved, and probably a little bit about the wildlife. So, tell us more
Well,
about IFAW, or International Fund for Animal Welfare.
yeah, so we were founded in 1969, and it was founded by a person, Brian Davies, who is from the UK,
Mm,
and it was really focused on the seal campaign in Canada. So the baby seals, which people still come up to me and say, well, I was 14 years old and I saw all of that. So we have two pillars. One is rescue, and the other is conservation.
yeah,
And how it boils down to is that you rescue individual animals,
yes,
and they are valuable for all the reasons we just talked about,
yeah.
but they have to have a place to live. And that's what conservation is all about. So
Oh, I
when you
see.
look at koalas in Australia, uh, or elephants in Africa, or beavers in Europe. And people ask, well, how does it all connect? Well, it connects in this way. You can save an individual animal in a wildfire or in a flood, but
Mm,
if they don't have a place to live,
yeah,
they're going to wind up in a zoo or a sanctuary, which we don't want to see. And
yeah.
so that's why you have to have the reforestation
Right.
of lands that has been lost. So I'm always looking for the examples to tell a story of an individual animal's value, whether it's a whale or a dolphin or an elephant or a pangolin or whatever it may be,
Mm,
and where they live. And increasingly, we're sharing the space. So I always start with a fundamental question. Are you willing to share the space on the planet? Sounds like a really simple, common sense question, but I do meet people who say, no, I'm not willing to do that.
mm.
And I always find that extraordinary.
So when you say share the space on the planet, because obviously someone who owns a zoo or who runs a zoo can say, yeah, I'm willing to put one of some of these animals in our zoo, or that's not what you mean, is it?
No, that's not sharing.
That's not
That's not
sharing either, no.
that's
It's not.
controlling.
That's
That's
controlling.
controlling.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
It's like it's like a
one of
prison,
the
really, isn't it? So
well, it is. It
yeah,
is. And there's all sorts of reasons where, zoos do great work if they have the resources, and so few really have the resources to serve conservation.
yeah,
But one of the examples that I give is because we have supporters all around the world, and they'll say, well, these people in Africa, they need to learn to live with lions that can kill them.
yeah,
And I said, yeah, but you're not even willing to share your garden with a rabbit who ate all of your tulips. So why are you inflicting your views on people that live with wild animals that can in fact kill them? So sharing the space actually means that human population has to really think about how they're organizing themselves in different ways. And you'll hear a lot about urban wildlife, and certainly during the pandemic, a lot of wild animals coming into the city. It's quieter. Uh, People who are living with bears or deer, or even turkeys. I hear people say, "Well, we've got to kill all of these turkeys because they're pooping in my garden." So if you're not willing to share the space, the wildlife is not taking your space. We have taken their space. And so you have to flip the narrative. You have to flip the story. And it's really about human behavior. Everything we do ultimately is about human
human
behavior.
behavior, right? I
Nature
see.
will bounce back really quickly. And we saw that during the pandemic. They were telling me a story in Nairobi. Because of the pandemic and everything was shut down, people were not driving. People said in Nairobi that the air cleared in 3 days and they hadn't seen Kilimanjaro in 50 years. So nature will bounce back if we let it. And that's why I remain hopeful about of climate change on nature.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, obviously the airline industry got hit straight away, and
Yes, yeah,
amongst other things. So
yes, yeah.
I'm not sure if the big power stations and electricity and generators and things like that they will all still kept going. Though that's the only thing. So
Well, but I'm still learning that the pandemic has affected us in ways that we didn't anticipate. And there was a notion that a lot of people have to say, well, let's get back to normal. But normal wasn't a very good place, and supply lines. And I don't know, here in the UK, and of course you have Brexit and you have all of these other things. But everywhere I travel, people say, well, where did all the people go? There's no one working in the restaurants or the airline, the baggage handlers, all of these things. It's still not sorted. And so, for our work, it gets back to there was no tourism. Tourism meant that there was no revenue for the national parks. Some national parks rely 100% on tourism revenue. And so you bounce back and say, okay, tourism has started again, so that's life can be protected. But the reality is that what we found out is that tourism is not going to fund wildlife protection when we have all of these other things happening in the world. And so it's caused, I think, everyone to think about how do we invest in nature. So it gets to investment in banking and carbon and all of these things. But we're still learning from the effects of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's something that's, well, just, I mean, post-pandemic, there's quite a lot of things that people's made some change. They said there's things that's almost going to change forever, the way we do things.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. The learning curve's still there from that. Yeah. I know. So in terms of conservation, sorry, conservatory.
Yeah.
I remember I was on holiday. I think it was Barbados, and I was at one resort where the baby turtles came in, and they were encouraging us to put them back in the sea again. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, is it? Or
it's an interesting question. It depends on who is telling you to do that.
Well, it was the resort owners. It was part of the tourist kind of, not tourist attraction, but it was one of the things that, the resort said, when you can also help the turtles survive by.
Well, but a lot of people want to help, and so that's the good news. In many instances, you shouldn't get involved.
Yeah.
Unless you know what you're doing. Like sometimes, like with turtles, well, why are they coming in? Are they nesting? Are they
baby ones? These are baby ones.
Yeah, baby ones. It would be odd that they're coming back in.
All right. All right. Well, maybe they did come. Maybe they're late.
It depends on what species they are. I mean, some turtles stay out to sea for years and years and years, and they only return if they're sea turtles. They're coming back to nest. So they may have been blown back in from a storm or something. I mean, there could be all sorts of reasons.
Or something like that,
yeah. And was it a normal storm that turtles typically will survive, or is it because the intensification of the climate, which makes the hurricane more intense, or it could have been the heat of the water? I mean, the science was showing, and I don't, in Barbados, but I can tell you off the coast of Florida, you're talking about water that's as warm as bath water, which is not normal.
That's not.
And so
there's some fishes that actually need more colder water than warm.
No, absolutely, that's right.
Yeah.
No, so there's a lot of die-up. I was reading the article this morning about snow crabs up in Alaska. It's like, well, billion snow crabs disappeared, and the scientists didn't know why. Well, there's a report out this morning saying that they simply died because the water just got too warm. And so it's entirely possible. What we see with a lot of species with the water being that warm in the Caribbean is that the whole population is trying to move further north, thinking that the water is colder, or they're chasing their food supplies. And so, climate change, we think about it with, the storm is more intense, or there's flood, or there's wildfire, but the things that you cannot see affect marine life in ways that we're still finding out is a problem. the whales moving further north, chasing the food supplies. Well, the food supplies are moving further north too, and you have the polar ice cap melting. So one thing leads to the other. And this gets back to the space, so we have a big initiative called Room to Roam. If you're not allowing wildlife to roam and to move freely, to adapt themselves, then ultimately there'll be a die-off that ultimately affects the health of the environment, which affects us. So that's why I say save an elephant, save yourself. It's true of save a whale, save yourselves. If the ocean dies, people will die.
Yeah,
Full stop.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's more ocean than there is land, anyways.
That's right. That's right.
I know in the UK, because you mentioned that your founder's from the UK, and it started with seals. I'm only an hour away from the beach where a lot of seals are. It's probably, I don't know if it's near there, but the east coast of UK is where a lot of seals are. But in recent years, we've had a couple of, you talk about whales moving north, we have had a couple of whales stuck in our River Thames in London. So that's probably explaining a little bit of what's going on. I think they managed to get the whales out, actually. There's 2 incidents, I think, in the past decade, I think.
Yeah. No, I actually was at our office. We've moved, but here in London, it's right on the Thames, right next to, across from House of Lords and Parliament.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And the whale,
wanted to say something to the politicians. It's probably saying, probably protesting on behalf of IFAW.
But the whale came up. Maybe they were trying to send a message, say, "Hey, what are you all on about?"
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, let's change the subject a little bit. Well, not even change it, I suppose, but just before we go, there's a couple of things. There's a link between IFAW and INTERPOL, I see, for environmental crime progress, and then we'll talk a little bit about your book, The
Couscous Chronicle.
Chronicles. Couscous is a Moroccan dish, I think, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, and it's a dish that we would eat every Friday after prayers. Okay. And people were asking me, well, why do you call the book The Couscous Chronicles? Isn't it just a salad? It might be. It might be in some places, but in North Africa, I've eaten
couscous, so I know it's not.
Yeah, no,
it's kind of. I thought it was small, tiny rice at first, or then some kind of like. Grain, some kind of, not wheat, but that barley.
Yeah, but it is but it is wheat. Yeah, it's semolina. Yeah. So as a book that I have out, it was released in June. Jane Goodall did the foreword for me, and we're very, very good friends. And it's about my life. It's a memoir and all of the things and all the places that I lived in before I joined IFAW, including, difficult places like Jerusalem, and what we went through. And we have a young family at the time, 3 young children, and trying to keep them safe. And I start out with my life in Morocco and the girl from Tangiers, and it's all about how I have an arranged marriage, with my wife who's from Tangiers, Morocco, and we've been married for 35 years. So something worked.
Congratulations! Yeah. And right, so it'll be nice to know for people to pick up the book and read it.
I hope. I think that the reviews are good and people have a good laugh, but they also get to explore. From an armchair travel experience where they may never go to a place like Yemen, or Jerusalem and Bulgaria, and so
still there's stuff going strong in Yemen as well as Jerusalem.
It's a very dangerous.
As we speak now, because obviously it's post-recorded, this show, so we don't know what's happening when this gets released, but.
Right.
It's always been like that. It would be ongoing probably when this is released anyway.
Well, it absolutely will be because some of these problems are just intractable. And I remain positive and I use humor to sometimes underline the insanity of daily life in some of our places. But, one thing about the book that I find interesting, and I'm happy that people are telling me this, is that even though they haven't been to some of these places and they have no intentions of going, they find some of the stories very relatable because I talk about bureaucracy and how inane it can be in our daily life. So everyone has a story about that. And so
I know.
There's a lot of laugh out loud
Slows
moments.
things right down, doesn't it, bureaucracy?
It does. It does. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the other last thing, I just wanted to really see what the link is. I would imagine I know what the link is between IFAW and Interpol with the Environmental Crime Program. Could you elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah. So this is a major global initiative that we have, is to disrupt wildlife crime, and that really means that it's not about the product. So ivory or rhino horn or pangolin scales. It's about how we can disrupt the criminal networks that trade in all of these wildlife products, but also wildlife live animals. So it's a $1 billion industry around the world. And so Interpol, of course, has the ability to share information with police forces and other, customs officials. And the focus that we had and the goal is to ensure that data is actually shared and that the information is shared and the knowledge of criminal networks that trade in wildlife products is disrupted in a way that forces were not aware of, and that they don't have time. So oftentimes you'll hear, border officials or police forces say, "Well, we're trying to stop illegal weapons and drugs and human trafficking and tobacco and all of these other things." And our argument there is, it's the same criminal networks. Criminal networks are not really concerned about whether they're focused on ivory or rhino horn or things like that. What they're trying to do is make money. And so the product for them is less important than the ability to make money. And so I think early days we were focused on the product, and we realized that was incorrect, that what we had to do was to work with, Border Force and UK customs officials to stop the traffic that flows through some countries. And so that's why we have the relationship with Interpol that we do.
Yeah. Wow, fantastic. Well, it's been a really great pleasure speaking to you and learning some things along the line as well. And as I say, I like having some causes, and as I say, I've been involved with animal rescue only in my own profession, but yours is a wider scale, obviously.
Yeah.
Once again, thanks a lot for sharing what there. Could you just, before we go, probably to tell people how to get involved or where to find IFAW?
Yeah, you can find so much more about what we're talking about at our website, which is ifaw.org, ifaw.org. And you can search for things that you're particularly interested in. And if you're interested in the book, you can also find me on Instagram at Couscous Chronicles, and it has all the links where you can actually buy the book.
Excellent. Is it Azzedine or Azzedine?
Azzedine.
It is Azzedine. I said it right the first time. Good.
That's right. No, you have it perfectly right.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, Azzedine. Well, thanks a lot for coming on the show and sharing
thank you.
your work with us.
All righty then.
Okay. That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. Or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.